Good morning, everybody. The sky is falling in Dallas, both figuratively, because of all the losing, and literally because they opened the roof in AT&T Stadium for the first time in 2 years, and a giant piece of metal fell from the sky onto the field, almost like a sign from the sun to Jerry Jones. We'll talk more about the debacle, all the losing, in Dallas coming up and what happened during Monday Night Football. Plus, lots more coming up on the show today for you guys to tune into. Odds shift. NFL's Rookie of the Year looked like it was locked up, but not so fast, says Bo Nix. Plus, Saints OG going to join the show. We have some great guests. And guess what? It's a Wilder Wednesday on a Tuesday. Charlotte Wilder will be joining us for the second half of the show. All that and more coming up on today's Gojo and Golic.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield here. We're presented by Campbell's Chunky, the soup that eats like a meal. And we got a great show for you. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review it. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the DraftKings Network, which includes our new YouTube channel. Thank you to the almost 750 subscribers who have headed over there, smashed the button, hit the bell. Dad, I even saw you getting in on the promotion action yesterday. You're learning the ways of YouTube and promoting stuff on social media. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I reposted. I mean, real proud of me. I reposted and basically said what you said to do because I wouldn't have known what to say to do. So, yeah, I'm jumping in with both feet, baby. Social media Golic. Yeah.
There we go. Social media Golic last night. Going out and selling the product the same way that we have seen our beloved Jerry Jones go out here and try and sell this Cowboys product here. You heard all last night about how Jerry Jones at his core is a salesman. And when we've devolved to that portion of the analysis, you know we have arrived at the truly bad place. The Texans win 34-10 last night. And as Jesse mentioned, a really inauspicious start. Like, you knew it was doomed right away when all of a sudden the promotion and the interview beforehand with Lisa Salters is covering the piece of scrap metal that fell from the sky in AT&T Stadium. Dad, the only other stadium that I can even think of where the stories about it falling apart were more appropriate to talk about than the team was at FedEx Field when you almost had the stanchion fall down and crush Jalen Hurts a couple of years ago.
Yeah. This is kind of the metaphor for the team, right? The sky is falling on this team. The team is falling apart. As Jesse said, they've angered the sun gods. I mean, it's all piling on now, the Cowboys. The Cowboys just don't stand a chance against these greater forces. And oh, by the way, their football team's not very good either. That probably has the most to do with it, but everything else is coming down on Jerry. It's the fun now. Fun. It's not fun. I guess that's the wrong word. The interesting thing now is not post-game, post-Cowboy loss, is what is Jerry going to say? Because everybody knows Jerry holds court after every game, and he has the gaggle of reporters around him. And why wouldn't the reporters be around him? Because you know you're going to get some Jerry gold. But that's what we've come down to. And I think this time it says Mike McCarthy lost the team. There's always some theme after a loss with Jerry Jones, and that seems to be the thing everybody waits for.
They show Jerry Jones in the booth all the time in that box with Stephen Jones, his son, who also works in the Cowboys front office. And I wonder if that's when they're workshopping takes that Jerry's going to drop in the media after the game when he does his hit on 105.3 to kind of distract everybody from what's going on there. Because, Dad, for like losing the team, what a ridiculous notion. He's losing the actual players on the team. Last night was almost as sad as watching the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight in terms of a once great franchise now stripped for parts and really struggling just with health in general, because this game, it was close for a long time, and I think that's more of an indictment, quite honestly, of the Texans who showed up here and probably expected this Cowboys team to roll over and die. And give the Cowboys credit, the guys that were out there fought their asses off for a long time in this game. You saw Micah Parsons playing with his hair on fire, plenty of other guys selling out here, but just too much of a war of attrition loss for them, Dad. They already came into this game banged up. We know with Dak Prescott now out for the season, but then Jake Ferguson goes down with the concussion early in this game. You lose Zach Martin and Tyler Smith in the same drive, both of your starting offensive guards. And man, the image of Zach Martin down on the field in the midst of this game, one of the most just devastating of this season. He's got a shoulder harness on. You can tell he's probably been playing through multiple injuries there. And after giving up a sack that's so outside of what we're used to seeing from Zach, it just looked like a guy whose body couldn't go anymore over the course of this game. And you know, I don't know what the future holds with there, honestly, but Dad, it just seemed like a microcosm of everything that's gone wrong with this Cowboys season. The parts that you've expected and come to count on for so long, missing the window, this Cowboys team, to maximize the best of future Hall of Famers on this roster, with Zach being the poster for that.
Yeah, listen, this started with Jerry and Steven not building up the team in the offseason to give them a winnable team. I know there were those that said this was a contending team. I certainly was not one of them, as documented on this show time after time. Thought they would take a step back, thought they didn't do enough. And then, as you said, the parts start to go down. Micah Parsons goes down. Dak goes down. The linemen, including Zach Martin. And you're right about Zach. Zach's been, while obviously you talk about quarterbacks and receivers, and they have great ones in Dak and CeeDee Lamb, Zach Martin has been the sturdy engine of that offense, the walk-in Hall of Famer, the guy you go back to the first round. Jerry Jones wanted to take Johnny Manziel and was talked out of it and took Zach Martin, and it was the right move to do. And just to see Zach kind of just trying to go out there with like you said, the shoulder harness on, you know he's got the back, you know he's got the injuries, and he just plays through them and just continues to try and play, but they just get beat down more and more.
Yeah, you can see why Micah Parsons name dropped Zach in particular when he talked about the guys that he wants to go do this for in the comments that people wanted to make much more about Mike McCarthy. It really was. I'm sure he's seen behind the scenes exactly what Zach and others have been going through to get to game day to try and go and give them an opportunity here. And Dad, you're going to get people on the on the Mike McCarthy side of this that are going to start to circle the wagons there. He's a coach that came in on a lame duck year this season. There's people wondering if and when Jerry Jones would make a midseason switch. The only time he had done that was bringing in Jason Garrett and naming him the head coach in the middle of the season. But walking into a year where they're not going to have to fire him because his contract's just going to expire at the end of the year. They already know, hey, we're probably playing more for a draft pick at this point than anything else. To sit here and quibble over fourth down decisions where people are getting mad at Mike McCarthy for taking a field goal off the board in a game you're not supposed to be in after a 14-play drive where you're actually down within shouting distance of scoring points here, to me makes absolutely no sense. I understand people are frustrated and there's memeable Mike McCarthy versions of clock management. But my God, in that instance, yes, you swing big. What do you have to lose? You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had no problem with it either. But that's Mike McCarthy gets the microscope on him, no doubt about it, as the Dallas team does. Because listen, we're sitting here talking more about Dallas than the winning team. Because I agree with you. This was a 20-10 game halfway through the third quarter. The Cowboys by score were in this game, but you never really thought they were in this game. I look more at the Texans as, they end up winning 34-10. They shut out the Cowboys in the second half, I think 17-0 after being up 17-10 in the first half. But it was a 10-point game with a quarter and a half to go. Dallas we know is done. The Texans, we're trying to take that next step, and there's just something kind of missing. Now, obviously, Stephon Diggs is out. Nico Collins came back. He had 4 receptions. Tank Dell had 4 receptions. Dalton Schultz had 5. That's where they're going. Of the 34 passes that Stroud threw, 21 of the targets to one of those 3 guys. So those 3 guys are leading the team. But we talk about Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry as great pickups. Joe Mixon was a great pickup. Joe Mixon has played in 8 games this year, and 6 of them he's gone over 100 yards. He has 8 or 10 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he has really been kind of the steadying hand of this offense. So I agree with you. The kind of close score into the second half was more indicative of Houston than of the Cowboys.
Yeah, if you look at the box score and you squint at this, you'd go, oh, Houston, all right, this looks more like what we'd expect. They beat this bad Cowboys team 34-10. CJ Stroud throws for over 250 yards in this game. Joe Mixon goes for 100 on the ground. Nico Collins getting back into the flow of things, has 54 yards. Tank Dell has 54 yards. But when you watch the game, you go, something about this doesn't look right. CJ Stroud looks a little bit off. We know he has been the most pressured quarterback in football this season. Last night, there was some of that, but it wasn't absurd by any means. And so this is a team that, Dad, maybe you can chalk it up and say, hey, Nico Collins coming back for that first game. It might take a little bit. We've seen this in other places with O linemen coming back. Plenty of guys getting off the injury report late in the season. Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. It might not be immediately back to what they were and what they meant as they reintegrate into this offense, but we know for the Texans, hey, there are still real issues for this team, and most of them right now still reside up front on the offensive line. So that's a group that I think as we look and handicap the AFC playoff picture going forward, it's going to get interesting. I felt terrible last night. We talked about already all the offensive line woes for the Dallas Cowboys. Zach Martin, who's going to be a Ring of Honor guy, walk-in Hall of Famer, dealing with that injury, and hopefully can come back and finish out this season on his terms as it's the last year of his contract with the Cowboys. Tyler Smith goes down. Tyler Guyton, the rookie, left tackles back in, gives up the strip sack to Derek Barnes, tries to then catch the ball off the back of one of his offensive linemen, go and run it, and then gets hit again, fumbles it, and the Houston Texans return it for a touchdown. Dad, it was thick on thick crime. It was technically a thick 6 that I had to celebrate, but it was one I felt badly about because it came at the expense of one of my offensive line brethren.
Yeah, Tyler, listen, he's struggling this year. He's a rookie left tackle, and he's struggling. Had some injuries, missed some time. But like you said, gave up the sack, catches the ball, tries to run, and gets the ball stripped from him. I mean, that's a lot of indignation for one play. So that was a tough call, no doubt about it. So I mean, for Dallas, Houston's going to win the division. Houston is probably going to be the 4th seed, winning their division though. For the Cowboys in going forward, unless we're not seeing something in practice, why they're not playing Trey Lance, I have no idea. I mean, What are you waiting for? I mean, Cooper Rush, listen, we talked about him. I talked about him 2 years ago when Dak got hurt in the first game. I had covered for the Westwood won the season. Missed the next 5 games. Cooper Rush went 4-0 and it lost the last one, went 4-1. He's a very capable backup. But he's 0-2 here, and you have Trey Lance. You have a former high draft pick that you traded for. What are you waiting for? I mean, you need to find out what you have, whether it's a tradable, asset, or whether it's a guy that could rise to be a backup. Well, I don't know, but neither do and maybe the Cowboys do know. Maybe they're seeing things in practice where they're like, we can't put him out, or maybe they still will. But boy, oh boy, I mean, I would say it's time.
I would agree. It also presents the most interesting option for the Cowboys going forward, and for Jerry Jones to seemingly shirk the most interesting option as the one to put out there is the most surprising to me. This guy loves courting controversy or at least chaos at that position, and Trey Lance is the only thing left on the roster that affords him that. And so that's kind of how we'll visit in with the Cowboys from now on, I have a feeling, because again, what we saw from that roster was fight, but unfortunately, the mind was able, but the body was not willing. It really was similar to the Tyson Paul fight the more and more we watched it. So while we leave them in the dust, Jesse, as a team that was supposed to contend and didn't, it might be time to actually talk about good teams in the NFC.
Okay, well, let's talk about the 49ers because we think they might be a good team in the NFC. We're not really sure. We expected them to be contending. They're in last place in the NFC West instead. The Lions are the class of the conference. The Eagles are playing well also. Guys, how do you look at this conference here? It's very confusing. It also feels like this is the upteenth time we've asked, like, what's going on with the 49ers? Are they good? Are they not? Are they in trouble? What do we think?
Yeah, I think, Dad, we're now at the point in the season, you sort of are who you are at this point. And so for assessing everyone in the NFC right now, I think it's important to say, hey, this 49ers team that we expected to be the one that was the class of the conference and return to the Super Bowl and all that, probably not going to show up, much like the Dallas Cowboys, although to a lesser extent. I think the 49ers have watched the core of this roster get old and the core of this roster start to deal with the effects of that. We've talked about George Kittle, who's played banged up and missed this last game this season. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, the rest of these guys, still good players on their best day, and we've still seen plenty of that. But unfortunately now, the 49ers, who have been knocking on the door this entire time, eventually when you keep running it back with the same group, you start to watch them all get old. It's a part of the process. And so now for them, I think they're getting a little preview into what life is going to be like beyond this. You re-sign Juwan Jennings to a modest deal, which you're probably going to need to do more of because you're going to pay your quarterback soon. And so this is the transition happening in real time for the 49ers. What have you made of this?
Yeah, all of a sudden that wide open window doesn't look as wide open or maybe more full of other teams trying to get through that window. Other teams may be catching up to San Francisco because of injury, because of age. You saw Nick Bosa again getting nicked up. It's a season of getting nicked. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk more than nicked. He's done for the season. But as you mentioned, Kittle doesn't play the last game. They just can't seem to get in a flow. The division is up for grabs right now, but San Francisco, while they're right there, there's a 6-4 team and then 3 5-5 teams. San they've lost to every team in the division already. They're 1-3. They have the worst division record. So as far as tiebreakers and such, they're not doing well there either. So as the favorite going into the season, they have certainly fallen. Listen, Philly is by far the second team now behind Detroit. It's Detroit and everybody else.
Let me see if you agree with this order of teams. I have ranked the NFC contenders college football playoff style, the old one, with the top 4 and then the first 2 out, looking at the field that we have right now. And I agree with you. It's Detroit over everybody right now. And then after that, I would say you're right. The Eagles probably next in line there. And then I look at the rest of the NFC North and saying the Vikings still with that defense, even an offense that's taken a bit of a step back at the 3 spot there. Green Bay, who's got some impressive wins against those teams. Washington, just on the outside looking in at 5. And then Arizona as right now the team that's sitting narrowly on top of the NFC West. But Dad also has, some big-time wins and a quarterback who's playing very well right now in Kyler Murray. What do you think of that group?
Oh, I could go with that. I think you could jumble up the bottom three and almost put the bottom three in any order. Or I should after Detroit and Philly, I guess with Washington and the Cardinals and the Packers, those three, I think you could kind of go with anybody. The Packers just barely get a win against the Bears. Washington falling off a little bit, has lost 2 in a row. Arizona has been one of the biggest surprises to the good this year. Kyler Murray is playing some ball. They're on a 4-game winning streak. I would almost give them a little more love just in the heat of the moment type situation because they've won 4 in a row.
Yep, I say it'd be, and this is kind of the interesting. We used to with Jason Fitz on the radio back at ESPN do the college football playoff committee exercise with NFL playoff teams, and if you do that with this NFC playoff picture, then it becomes how much you value head to head because the Cardinals do have losses to the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers, and that Washington loss, they baptized those guys. So you've seen head to head what those teams look like, but Arizona on a really strong run right now, making a lot of headway. And Kyler Murray on his best day might still be the best quarterback of that bunch, even with Jordan Love and the emerging Jaden Daniels in tow. So the NFC picture is certainly interesting when it comes to the playoff and what we're trying to pull out of that. Coming up next, though, it's time to celebrate large excellence and take a look at a rapidly changing offensive rookie of the year picture. Next on Gojo and Golic.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic, and welcome back to another historic week of offensive linemen. So not only did we get a thick six, guys, but also just a regular old middle-of-the-field first down conversion because linemen are offensive weapons, okay? Let's hand out our Offensive Lineman of the Week, presented by Campbell's Chunky Soup that eats like a meal. Guys, is this an easy one to give to Vederian Lowe? Like, his touchdown there, does he lose any points, do you think, because of a pretty massive illegal formation penalty that brought a third down conversion back? What do we think?
Listen, I don't like to focus on the negatives in a lot of these situations. I think there's going to be plenty of time for that. This guy's a rookie. He's got a lot going on. And quite honestly, in that penalty, I think a little bit of it's tough with the guard lined up a little deep. There's semantics that we can get into. And so instead, Dad, what we'll focus on is just, going and delivering in the red zone. We know the NFL is about battling in situations and winning those spots. He was ready down in the red zone when his number was called. Great execution on the pull and shed to go and get open. Soft hands in the end zone. I'm going to show the man some love and say he's working through growing pains that come with being a young offensive lineman, and he's making plays in the meantime.
Well, I thought he sold it well, right? Because there has to be a little bit of acting, even though you're an eligible receiver. You're not just lining up in that 2-point stance like a wide receiver running a route. You usually have to sell it like you're blocking, like, yeah, I'm eligible, but I'm blocking on this play, and then sneak out into the flat. So I absolutely give him credit for that. Not his fault, that there was a penalty in the situation.
No, exactly. So second-year player, first year in New England, making big strides in the end zone on a team where it's been hard to come by shots at the end zone. Now, a lot of that's changing with Drake May at the helm, so maybe more of this will come. So shout out to Vederian Lowe holding it down, a thick six for everybody to try and show that there are brighter days ahead in Foxborough. And I think, Dad, Patriots fans, it's sort of been an adjustment the last few years, we know, post-Brady and Belichick, but now you got to feel like you've got your guy in Drake May, because what we've seen since he's taken over as the starter has been nothing short of everything you'd expect from a guy who was a top overall pick, and in an environment where we know he's not getting any help. I mean, he's got to throw touchdown passes to his offensive linemen. So I'm curious for you, Dad, going all the way back to the pre-draft conversation of where you had Drake May ordered amongst these quarterbacks and how it's looked relative to what you've expected. Because I think for all these guys, we've ridden the roller coaster a little bit outside of Jayden Daniels, who burst onto the scene and has immediately turned around the vibes and hopes of this Washington Commanders team. For everybody else, there's been very noted and documented ups and downs. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, but Drake May, ever since he's been inserted to the lineup, has been the juice that they expected.
Yeah. Actually, of the group, I had Michael Penix as I think will end up being the best. Now, he hasn't played, obviously, because of Kirk Cousins. Then I had Jayden Daniels of the guy that was going to play being who I thought was the best. And he has started out that way. But, boy, Bo Nix has come on. And of the three that have started the regular season, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams, Bo Nix is arrow up without question after a 4-touchdown game. He has the most touchdowns of all the rookies with 14. Jayden has the least amount of interceptions with 3. But Drake May, you're right. The bottom line for New England is they believe, again, it's his rookie year, but the arrow is kind of showing we have our guy. There's more information that we have our guy than we don't have our guy. And now you can start building around him, which is something they obviously need to do because they are stripped pretty bare on the offensive side of the ball. So that's the one thing you have to look at with rookie quarterbacks, because we're seeing what's going on with Bryce Young, and we've seen what happened with Zach Wilson, with Sam Darnold, as far as being high picks, but being done. Daniel Jones, it looks like he's going to be gone after this year, not making it through there. Well, Jones did get paid. I correct myself. But I like what Drake May is showing. Again, it's not always the stats. He is completing, almost 67% of his passes, 9 touchdowns, I think 6 interceptions. But it's the poise in the pocket. I look less at stats, even though I'm naming stats, but I look more at how you're handling the situation, how you handle the rush. Are you showing quick feet? Are you showing happy feet and getting out of the pocket before you should? Are you bailing before you should? Are you throwing the ball before you should? I look at all those things, and he's settling in for the fourth, basically, rookie to start. He's settling in really, really well.
I mean, he's settling in, and I could argue based on what we've seen play-wise, outside of Jaden Daniels, he looks the best of the group. Bo Nix has made major strides, there's no doubt, and leads in some of the volume stats here. But I'll give you some with Drake May. Since he took over Week 6 as a starter, he's 9th in completion percentage over expectation in the NFL and first among rookie quarterbacks in that category. He's 7th in quarterback pressure percentage, so still under duress a lot in front of that Patriots offensive line. But sack percentage dropped down to 16, so he's been able to evade some of the pressure in the pocket and help out his offensive line in that way. No one in the NFL's got more scramble yards than Drake May since he took over in Week 6. He's been stellar using his legs, and so he's come in, and what we talk about, Dad, the guys up top, you're going to have to overcome some of the stuff around you going to these bad teams. And for him, with the drops in this receiver room that really doesn't have a ton of talent and the pressure up front on the offensive line, I think he's been pretty remarkable. Now, a lot of it's been low and slow. Even look at the game against the Rams, for example. He attempted 40 passes in that game, and only 5 were over 10 yards. So it was getting the ball out around the line of scrimmage and taking shots down the field when he could. Hunter Henry's a lion's share of that. But this is a guy going back to the draft. I remember saying and talking to our buddy Nate Tice about this early. I thought it was going to be a debate between him and Caleb Williams for number 1. And right now, again, in a much smaller sample size than Caleb, he's looked the better of the two quarterbacks. And you would argue and say with a far lesser roster around him than Caleb's got in Chicago.
Oh, there's no doubt about it, without question. And you know, as far as the shorter passes, they just don't have the weapons. Hunter Henry is the weapon. So that's not going to be a whole lot of downfield throws. As we talk about, when you're a higher draft pick, you're going to arguably a bad team. So there's going to be some growing pains along with it. We're finding that out with Caleb Williams in that offensive line. The offensive line for Washington has been surprisingly good when they mixed and matched some parts. They have clicked, you know, better than a lot of the other offensive lines that are in front of the rookies in the league. So it's not just the growing of the rookie quarterback, it's the growing of the team around him as well.
It certainly is. And Jesse, we're not the only ones being complimentary of this rookie growing in New England too here. There was a coach that took notice of this as well.
Yeah, Sean McVay was like very impressed with Drake May. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's, you know, you look at it and you can really see his ability to create off schedule. I thought he did a great job of being able to make plays in the pocket today, extend drives. I thought he was patient, taking some underneath checkdowns where guys were able to create. We had some tighter coverages and he was able to fit the ball into tight windows. So he looks like a stud. You know, I didn't do too much work on him coming out, but I do know that a lot of people that studied him really hard that, you know, that I truly respect their, you know, their opinions, loved what he was all about. You can see, you know, just the impact that he has on his teammates, the way people talk about him here. He looks like he's going to be a special player for a long time, and he gave us fits today.
Just reinforces the point that you made, Gojo. Seems like they found their guy. And, you know, there's been a lot of complaining in New England about lack of talent around him, coaching, blah, 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 but he is definitely the bright spot.
He is the bright spot of this team. There's no doubt. And really, while there are, you know, a lot of things that Gerard Mayo's got to focus on, and Patriots fans, I'm sure, have time to nitpick, at the end of the day, the pass or fail grade this team was going to receive this season was, did they strike gold with Drake May? Did they pick the right quarterback? And the answer so far seems overwhelmingly yes. So much so, guys, that I do want to take a look, Jesse, at the Offensive Rookie of the Year odds, because we noticed this yesterday. Things are rapidly changing in an award that we thought was open and shut with Jaden Daniels at this point in the year.
Yeah, we basically gave it to Jaden Daniels, right? All of a sudden, though, he was at minus 3,000. His odds moved to just minus 400. Huge shift as Bo Nix threw for 4 touchdowns. May, Brock Bowers, all above Caleb Williams on the odds board right now. But, man, guys, we got a race going on now, huh?
Yeah, Dad, so this is interesting. Bo Nix now making this jump here and comes off a big statistical game. We talked about it on Friday, going up against a Falcons defense that wasn't in position to pressure the quarterback much, was going to give time for one of the better scrambling young quarterbacks in the NFL. How impressed have you been with the development of Bo Nix this season? What do you think has been the thing that he's gotten better at since he's gone along?
Well, I think he's calmed down in the pocket. Again, that's what most of these quarterbacks do. Now, let's remember, he had, 61 starts in college, and I do think we are finding that players that have more experience in college are going to be the guys that go a little earlier now. I think he's calmed down. I think he's kind of figuring it out. I think the game is slowing down for him. And again, that's exactly what should happen with a rookie. Rarely does a rookie come out on fire like CJ Stroud did last year, or like Jaden Daniels did this year. There's a learning process. And normally, as I said again, normally they're on a bad team. So the learning process and the growing process sometimes takes a little more time, but he's with a hell of a quarterback coach in Sean Payton to bring him along. And listen, Sean Payton is not going to baby anybody along. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie, you're a 10-year guy. Sean Payton is going to coach you hard. That's Sean Payton. So I think he's grasping, he's picking up, he's learning just exactly what you want to see out of a rookie quarterback, taking stats, taking record out of it. How are they growing as a quarterback? Now, the Rookie of the Year honors is going to go is a stats driven thing, right? It's going to be on stats. He has 14 touchdowns now, just threw 4. So all of a sudden now he's second, but Jaden Daniels has been the steady, kind of constant number 1 guy. Drake May has come onto the scene. Brock Bowers, I think, should be getting a little more love. Brock Bowers is second in the NFL in receptions of everybody, not just tight ends. Jamar Chase is first with 73. Brock Bowers is second with 70. He's only 3 behind. And don't tell me that's all they have to throw to. Well, you know what? If that's all they have to throw to in the Raiders, you know who else knows that? The defense knows that. The other team knows that as well. Yet this guy just continues to do what he did at Georgia as a true freshman. Catch the football. He's the number 1 tight end as far as yards are concerned. Number 1 as far as obviously receiving because he's second in the league. I'm a little bummed. You know me and quarterbacks and awards. I love seeing the non-quarterback get the awards, and I think Brock Bowers deserves more love than plus 3,000.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Brock Bowers has been nothing sort of sensational for a guy that in the pre-draft process got plenty of people asking questions about size and fit and all these different things.
Was that unreal?
For a dude that had been one of the greatest college players at that position at a place in Georgia that plays plenty of high-level competition in a way that just made no sense to me, Dad, given what we know about ball in that conference.
Oh, I completely agree. I could see back in the day quarterbacks, that were great in college weren't great in the pros. The pros didn't kind of use their college talent. So you saw, they were just a great college player. But I couldn't believe people were talking about that with Brock Bowers. I mean, this dude against, as you mentioned, top level competition just came in as the first game Georgia played his true freshman year was against Clemson when Clemson was one of the better teams. And he was like the most targeted receiver as a true freshman in his first game. Dude has been unbelievable. But also we look in this rookie race and you see Caleb Williams dropping. Caleb Williams Brock obviously is not a quarterback, but Drake May, Bo Nix getting better, Jaden Daniels holding well. Caleb Williams he's struggling. I mean, he's definitely struggling.
Yep, he is struggling, and we know the second half of their season, the schedule has been a lot harder. I look, especially when it comes to the odds, you've already missed your best chance to get in on the Bo Nix money because this is going to get interesting. Bo Nix, as of right now, is the only one of these guys that we've talked about that has a primetime game left on the schedule. They're slated to play the Browns on Monday Night Football on December 2nd, and we know those standalone games, especially with quarterback stuff, throws things really out of whack. This is a Browns team that struggled mightily, and so if he puts up big numbers there in front of everybody, I'm sure this is going to get a little more hairy, even though I do think ultimately, Dad, through all of this, maybe if Drake May had started the season, and we'll never know, if he had had the entire season to go, he might have been able to pop enough early to make this a story. But Jaden Daniels has been part of one of the more impressive reclamation projects, along with Dan Quinn, that we've seen in quite some time, and I think it's going to be very hard to pry that award out of his hands. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I do think it's Jaden's to lose, even though it got closer. And of the ones you're talking about, 2, it looks like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix are going to be playoff bound, at least right now.
It's certainly an interesting season for those two. Coming up next, we'll tap in with a guy who's been through the roller coaster this season with his team. Saints offensive guard Cesar Ruiz going to join us to talk about their resurgence next on Gojo and Golic. All right, busy NFL season, and we always appreciate when players give us some of their time. Delighted now to be joined by Cesar Ruiz, New Orleans Saints offensive guard, coming off a win. And Cesar, we appreciate the time this morning, man. We know it's been a wild season for you guys, but stringing together 2 wins now, walking into this week. Congratulations, first off, on the win. But how are you guys feeling in that locker room after this?
Yeah, first, thank you. Wins in this league don't come easy, but the energy is high. And it's just overall, you just kind of feel that feeling that we hadn't felt those 7 weeks. It just feels good to get that win and celebrate in the locker room and just see things clicking together. And especially this past game, being able to finish strong, finally close the game out was big too. So the energy is definitely high when we're just trying to keep things rolling.
Yeah, you guys have definitely ridden the roller coaster. Start off the season with 2 wins, lose 7, and then win 2 in a row. During that 7-game loss, take us into the locker room and the mood of the team trying to break out of that losing streak.
Yeah, the tough part about it for me was, I had a knee injury. Ended up having to get an operation done on my knee, and I was out for 4 weeks. So I'm basically on my couch watching everything go on. So I'm not really into, you kind of feel from what you feel personally, you can imagine what the guys on the field, the other guys are feeling too. But that 7 weeks is tough. But the toughest part is just just getting rid of that feeling, and we already knew at some point, no season goes without adversity. At some point you'll go through adversity at some point in the season, and the main focus for everybody else was. For everybody in the locker room was you had to push through this adversity because we knew we were going to get it. We didn't know at what level it was going to be, but at some point you had to push through some adversity, and that's basically what it came down to.
You mentioned you being on the couch with injury. You guys also obviously were down Eric McCoy in the middle of that offensive line, your quarterback and Derek Carr for stretches of this season. So a lot of that certainly went into the losing streak there. And unfortunately, it ends with the firing of your guys' head coach in Dennis Allen. I don't know if there was a players only meeting or what the message looked like from Darren Rizzi, your special teams coach, when he took over, but what was the conversation among you guys coming off that about what the rest of this season could and would look like?
The main message from him, was a few things, but the main thing was really we're worried about 1 week at a time. We can't worry about what the season looks like 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, or at the end of the season. We're worried about 1 week at a time and focusing on how we're going to win each and every game moving forward. How we're going to be 1-0 every week. And that's been his message, and that's been it's stuck with a lot of people, and we've all just bought into his message. His big thing is, he cares about us, the guys in the locker room. He's made that clear. So he care about you guys. And I want to make sure his main goal is to make sure we're ready to go on Sundays. So he'll do his part throughout the week. He wants to make sure we're ready to go on Sundays. And, he's done a great job of that.
Nobody ever likes to see anybody get fired, but it's a reality of the profession. So when Darren Rizzi takes over, that first Wednesday of the first work week that he's the head coach, I know Derek Carr was asked about the practice, and he said fast. Says it was upbeat and up tempo. Was that your assessment as well of the difference in the practice?
Yeah, absolutely. It was fast, upbeat, up tempo. It wasn't like, oh, we're banging. It wasn't so much of a physical tax on like O-line body, just banging heads and doing. It wasn't so much of that. It was more so getting up to the ball. It was more of a mental stress, which helps a ton. And like I said, practice is fast, specific, detailed, and that's been the emphasis. And if it's not, well, we do it. And we've been holding everybody to that standard, and it's been helping a lot.
Speaking of the standard, Dad mentioned Derek Carr, who, listen, he was down for a little bit this year. You guys had a couple of your backup quarterbacks go through there in the starting lineup. How much does Derek Carr mean to this team, not just in terms of the play, but in terms of what this locker room is going to be going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's our quarterback, captain, leader. So, he means a ton to this team. He's extremely important. Like I say, he plays a big part, and it's just, it's great to see him back out there on the field.
In certain seasons, it reaches a point where playoffs seem too far out of reach, and players start. It's about self-preservation, but it still seems you guys are just 2 games out at first. You just beat Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. You do have one more division game in Tampa Bay. So, is there a kind of renewed we can still take this, even though we're 4-7, take this division?
Yeah, it's kind of like what I said in the beginning. That the division playoffs, we can't think that far down the line. But we know we know we got things. We know we feel what we can do. Like I said, man, it's just one of those things. Like it's Jordan to our heads. Like, hey, we are not looking right now. We got the bye week, and that's just 1-0 every week, and we just see how the outside things play out from there.
So are you guys one of the locker rooms that I've heard now has been snake bitten by the drug that is Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield? I know there was a college team that also got in on this song. Are you guys bumping that in the locker room now too?
Is that the Staring at the Blank Page?
Yes.
That one? Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Keep going with it. You're fine.
I've heard that song a million times, right? And so here's what happened. I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened. The O-line got to pick. We got to pick the music for practice that day, and that was on the script. And that was one of the songs we put down. And I didn't really know. I was writing songs down for the guy. Everybody picked a song, and I heard it, and I was like, "Man, it's a nice song." You know what I'm saying? And it just kind of just rolled with it. We kind of stuck with it, and it's kind of I don't know how. I keep hearing it, and it's a great song. So.
Oh, by the way, did any of your songs get played on the list at practice?
Yeah. A lot of my songs get played. I kind of everybody kind of knows when my music gets played because it kind of shifts from the country to like early 2000s, like East Coast New York rap. So everybody kind of knows when all right, this is Caesar's song.
There we go. Big vibe shift when Caesar's play. Well, that's a huge part of every locker room is getting the playlist right for different days of the week and different position groups taking hold there. You mentioned it though. I mean, you're a guy from New Jersey. You go to college in the Midwest. What's the transition been like going down to New Orleans and getting used to all this the last few years?
Man, I was in the South before. I went to IMG Academy for 2 years, my junior and senior year. So I was in the South for a little bit. I was in Florida. So started Jersey, Florida, go back to Michigan, and come to New Orleans. And this was when I first got here. It was completely different. It was like a culture. It's just a complete culture shift, right? I was just like, it took me a minute to adjust. I was like, man, like everything here is so different, and I had to get used to because when I was at IMG Academy, I was on a campus, gated. I couldn't leave. So now I'm interacting with people in public. And the first thing I'll never forget, it caught me off guard, how nice people were. And me coming from New Jersey, sometimes people were so nice. People were so nice that I was like, what you up to? I'm like, why are you being so nice? What are you up to? And it's just like, I just got used to like, oh, these people are just great people down here. And, here I am 5 years in here and I love this city. I've completely just, taken it all. And, I love this city.
By the way, how nice is IMG Academy compared to other high schools?
Man, let's not even talk about high schools. It's better than some of these colleges. When I used to go on my visits in high school, I'm like, man, our locker room better than this. Our weight room better than, so it was crazy to kind of compare that. But IMG's insane. And I left there in 2017. And I hear that it looks completely different now than when I was there. So I can imagine that place is amazing.
No, there's no doubt. It is some incredible stuff. I mean, we talk about this all the time with like Texas high school football,
Right.
just the stadiums and the facilities that get built around there. But IMG, truly second to none. It's just a reminder of the incredible path that you've been on that's now led to this point here, man, where you become a huge part of this team, and having you and having Eric back and these guys along the interior has made such a difference. So we appreciate you giving us some time today, man. We know it's a busy season and a long one. Congrats on all the success, and excited to watch you guys finish this thing out, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
Man, it's been a while since I have resonated with something as much as I have resonated with being stunned by the kindness of people outside of the Northeast. Like, we had the reverse of that, where we grew up. Now, I was born in New Jersey when you were playing for the Eagles, but we moved around so much as kids, and I'll never forget Mom's reaction when we moved from Scottsdale, Arizona to Connecticut, where, you know, out west, you're out and about at the grocery store, and you just smile at people and say hi to strangers and do all that stuff. And the first time Mom tried to do that at like a Stop and Shop in Connecticut, and people look at you like you've got 5 heads. Jesse, I'm sure it's the same way in Boston, but the places that you go that are, I should say, not Midwest involved, because I'm going to talk about weather, but when you go to the East Coast and you go to places where it gets cold, people are mean and angry during the winter months because they're kind of depressed.
Yeah, I mean, it gets dark at 4:20 here. So, yeah, I'm mad about that. I'm mad about that every day. I wake up mad about that. At 1 p.m., the light is doing that thing, that like dusk thing. At 1 p.m., I just had lunch. I need to have lunch. And the light is telling me that it's time to start winding down. I was walking my kids yesterday in the little push wagon, and my daughter was like, "Look, Mommy, the sun's going to sleep." And I was like, Jesus, it's freaking 4:30. Yep, I guess it's time for all of us to go to bed. Like, it's torture when you have kids, because then you have to figure out what to do inside for like 3 hours before bedtime. So yeah, that's why we're all mean, and why if you try to talk to us in the grocery store, we're gonna stare daggers at you.
Wow. What an explanation there. That about sums it up.
Yeah.
That really sums it up.
Yep, we're mad.
It's the truth, though. You go to these other places, and it's such a culture shock between us going to school in the Midwest, where everyone's obviously full of ope kindness, and then now, I mean, I noticed it major league when I moved out here to the West Coast, because everyone's the kind of nice that, kind of like Caesar mentioned, makes you sort of a little bit on edge, because you wonder, especially in Los Angeles, what they want from you in exchange for this kindness that you're being given. So it all feels a little bit harder to wrap your... It's such a weird Stockholm syndrome, where when I first moved out here, Dad, I found myself missing mean people, because I was like, man, I at least know you're honest, and I know where I stand with you.
That's exactly right. In the Midwest, it's pure. I mean, it's just pure niceness. The West Coast, it's like, wait a minute, what are you
fake.
up to?
Yeah,
but
it's
in the
fake.
East Coast, like Jesse said, it's just flat out, hey, this is the way we are. Accept us. We can be mean, tough, deal with it. And you know what? At least they're honest about it.
Yeah,
I'll give you that, Jess.
The people in LA are definitely faking it. They're not really nice. They're like, yeah, hey, how are you?
Yes.
Like, have a good morning. And then you walk by and they're like, that is the ugliest outfit I've ever seen. Nobody there is really being nice to you. You should know that.
No, and I would say, because Dad mentioned the West Coast in general, I would say, and I had not traveled to this area of the country until recently. In the last few years, I'd gotten to call 2 college football games every year in the Pacific Northwest. And going up there, they remind me a lot of the Midwest. They're just all a little hungrier. Like in the Midwest, we're well fed. We're all walking around brimming at all times. In the Pacific Northwest, it's a little bit rainier than it is snowy. So you've got that in terms of the seasonal depression, and it's a little more year round. They've got kind of that permacloud tie-in that we have in the Midwest, but they're just a little bit hungrier, Dad. That's about the only thing. They're over-caffeinated and a little bit hungry, and so maybe that makes them a little bit on edge, but I feel the very same ethos coming from that bunch.
Yeah, more healthy, more nuts and berries, so they're hungry. Where in the Midwest, it's steak and mashed potatoes, where we may be a little bit fatter, but we're a hell of a lot happier.
Can we just get rid of daylight savings, though? How much daylight are we trying to save? I think, like, we could use it. We should use the daylight.
For the farmers.
But guess
the
what?
farmers.
We have artificial light now, okay? The children are not working the fields anymore. They do not yearn for the fields. They need to go to school, okay? So can we just let the sun rise at like 7 instead of 6 and just have it set at a normal time, please?
The children, they yearn for the fields and they yearn for the sunlight right now, as does our own Jesse Cofield. So we're going to try and figure out how to get our friend Jesse some much needed sunlight so that her and all the rest of our friends on the East Coast can all be a little bit nicer in the grocery store to the people that are moving in from out of town here. In the meantime, speaking of nice, coming up next in the next hour, we will get to our buddy Charlotte Wilder, who always is a bright ray of sunshine on Gojo and Golic.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Conan O'Brien was named host of the Oscars in March. Can't wait for that one. Going to be funny. And live on the DraftKings Sportsbook Academy Awards bets. We have the odds here. Guys, looking at these, how many of these have you seen? And some of them haven't even come out yet.
We just thought Sing Sing was Sing 2, and they labeled it wrong. That's how out of touch we are with these top movies, Dad.
I thought we were talking about the prison.
Have not seen any of them. And Wicked and Gladiator 2, which Gladiator 2 should win, and I haven't even seen it yet. I can't wait to see. And Wicked is in two parts. The first one is 2 hours and 40 minutes.
You haven't seen Dune Part 2? Come on. All right, Charlotte Wilder going to join the program next. Come on, man.
Hour number 2 of Gojo and Golic here. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield. And it's Tuesday, which means it's time to act like it's Wednesday. Charlotte Wilder, our good buddy, host of Oddball with Amin El-Hassan on the DraftKings Network every day but Friday. Kind enough to join us as she always does on this time and on this day. Charlotte, how we doing, bud?
I'm great. I just love that our whole deal here is determined by the fact that my last name starts with a W. It's like Wednesday, Wilder. That's really all it took, and we've taken it and run with it. And honestly, I'm really proud of us, Senior.
Yeah, we used a W, right? I mean, again, we're an inch deep and a mile wide. Not a whole lot of thought process, but we turned it into something good, right? A Wilder Wednesday on a Tuesday.
It's the sports talk radio background. It's we work in bits. You work out the name first, and then you figure out what you're going to talk about after that. And so once you've got a good name, you're not going to let that die on the vine here. So Charlotte, kind enough to join us. Plenty of NBA to talk about here. Charlotte Wilder, also the host of a great new sports gossip podcast, which is awesome. Charlotte, is there any good tea that we need to know about right now? I feel like we have untapped this as a market with Charlotte Wilder, who is a woman that wears many hats. Like, we're going to get to talk about this matchup coming up tonight, how much we should care about the Celtics and the Cavaliers facing off in an NBA Cup game where you've got this incredible Cavaliers run and her Boston Celtics team going great. Charlotte Wilder has also in the past been the arbiter of is it sports, someone who can help you figure out if this thing that you love in your life is in fact sports, but now also delving in and realizing that sports is just gossip for people who are afraid to admit it and seek it in other areas of their life. And so, Charlotte, is there a favorite bit of sports gossip that you've got so far this week?
I am so glad you asked. First of all, thank you for that lovely shout out. I just started, my co-host Madeline Hill and she has a newsletter called Impersonal Foul, and she came up with sports gossip as a term. And I was like, oh, this is the words. These are the words I've been looking for. And we've been having a lot of fun. This week, I'm pretty excited to talk about, Tom Brady at the Knicks game, there was like a lot of stuff to unpack there. I think that's going to be really fun. I also just kind of want to do a deep dive on Joe Mazzulla, because he's been saying the absolute weirdest stuff. Also at that Knicks game, Anne Hathaway got almost OG Anunoby knocked her popcorn over, and she was like, "This is a dream of mine." And I was like, and I just. It's these things that you really have to take apart, and we're not reckless. I want to be clear. We're not the Dumois of sports. That said, if anybody has a hot tip that they want to send my way, my DMs are open, Gojo.
I am all for the gossip. I would read the National Enquirer, those magazines, or watch the Entertainment Tonight shows. Just for the tea being spilled. I mean, I dig this. This is awesome, Charlotte. I love it.
Thank you, Senior. I'm currently trying something I'm interested in is what's going on in Joe Burrow's dating life. So, just tossing that out there if anybody has any info. I've done some digging on
any
Instagram.
Correlation between his hair getting less blonde dyed and the dating life rumors starting to increase again. Because for Joe Burrow, who's a handsome guy and he's got all the charisma, it was an objectively tough hairstyle choice for him that reeked of someone going through something. And so now I hope he's coming out on the other side better, despite the fact that the Bengals season not necessarily going the way that he'd like it to.
Yeah, so we talked about this maybe last week or a few weeks ago. Taylor Fritz, the U.S. Open, the guy who made it to the U.S. Open finals, the first American in a long time, he recently bleached his hair. And I was like, it feels like athletes bleaching their hair might be like girls getting bangs. I'm worried about them. So I was worried about Joe when he did that. Now that it's growing out, I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better about this. But I feel like bleaching your hair as a male athlete is a sign that you are going through something. So that's just speculation, but that's it doesn't seem too far off.
Should I bleach my hair just for the fun of it?
Oh, well.
Boy, I really kind of want to see it now. I'm not going to lie.
Same.
I just feel like now that you've entered that into the universe, Dad, you know what? Let's put it this way. If you went the bleached platinum blonde, it's not that far off from the almost entirely silver look that you have now.
If I bleach my hair, do I bleach the beard as well? Do I bleach at all?
I love
Jesse's
how we
nodding
got the
yes.
no from Charlotte and the yes from Jesse here. Jesse, state your case for bleaching both.
Oh, he's gonna look ridiculous. It's kind of like.
He's going to look ridiculous
I can't-
anyway. It's going
I
to be
was gonna
Super
s-
Saiyan Mike Golick Sr. It's a 62-year-old that's trying to look like Justin Timberlake.
I was gonna say something really inappropriate that I shouldn't say on the show, but it's like you kind of have to match. Do you know what I mean? When you match.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Carpet
gotta
drape
I know where you're going.
situation, yeah.
Here's the thing though,
Yeah.
Senior, you have really such a lovely gradient going on that I would hate to mess that up, because what if you bleach it and then it doesn't grow back the same way? You know what I mean? Like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you should go for it.
If the bleach turned my dad bald like me, it would be the greatest win that I've had in God knows how long, to watch him robbed of those flowing locks. That my dad will be a decade into the grave and the hairline won't have budged a bit. So he's got that much to hold on to, whether it's blonde or not.
Yeah, I always wonder if I should talk about hair when we're doing the show together, because I know how much that upsets you. So.
Wow.
No, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. Don't write in the paper that I am mad. So
Put it in the
Charlotte,
paper that I got mad.
Charlotte, you mentioned Joe Mazzulla saying some crazy things right now. How unhinged is it on the scale of normal Joe Mazzulla? And as we look and start to spin it forward towards this game coming up, where you've got a Cavaliers team that's still undefeated going up against the defending champion Boston Celtics. I know we all struggle with NBA regular season meaning. How much can we attach to this? How much can we really get excited about this game that's being played in November in a league that does not seem to care about games played in November?
I mean, I think you can care about it a lot. I think that what we've seen from the NBA Cup is that if there are stakes in November, people do actually care about NBA basketball. I mean, I think people got really into the Cup last year, especially in those later stages of the game. Senior definitely did. I'm sort of obsessed with it. And so I think when you have something like this, where you didn't even need to manufacture a structure for this to be a huge deal. The Cavs being undefeated, I think, is one of the most surprising things that has happened in sports in a long time, just because nobody expected that. And it's not that we shouldn't have. We probably should have when you look at this team. I mean, I think they are very much for real. I don't think this is luck. Sure, the Eastern Conference has been historically weak this year.
Yeah.
But I don't think that takes away from this team, the way they're playing together, the fact that Evan Mobley and that Jarrett Allen's back, that Darius Garland's been really picking up the pace that he needed to be at, that Donovan Mitchell's been playing incredibly well. I think this team is so for real, and I think that the Celtics are so for real. I don't always feel like everybody still thinks that, even though they won a championship and had a historic season, because the East was so weak last year. So I think having these two teams that are good in this conference go up against each other, it doesn't feel like, oh, well, but it's just the East. It feels like, no, these are two exceptional basketball teams. And the stakes couldn't be higher than when a team's undefeated 15 games into a season.
I completely agree. Yes, the in-season tournament really grew on me. I love it now. And listen, while it's only, 14, 15 games into the regular season, and we know it's a long season with 82, we know the Cavs aren't going undefeated. That's not going to happen. But you do get a great matchup of now an Eastern Conference that is up to now 4 teams over 500. It was 2 for a while. Now it's 4, down to the Knicks at the 4th side at 8 and 6. So I do think, even though it's early in the season, this is a heck of a matchup. It really is. So I'm looking forward to it. The group play is on the line as well, and I think more people have gotten into the in-season tournament, including. This shouldn't be lost on the fact that the players are getting into it, because last year the players didn't even know when there was a cup game unless the hardwood was different. They were like, oh, this is a cup game. Now they know. And so I think the whole thing, Charlotte, has grown very well.
And guys,
Definitely.
We know it's a Tuesday, right? So we are aware. We're not the players. We're aware. Another week at the NBA Cup. Another week for your chance to double up on the DK Sportsbook. So during the NBA Cup, DraftKings Sportsbook customers get 2 profit boosts for same-game parlays and live bets for each group play day. So download the app and double up on the NBA Cup with DraftKings, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Guys, I'm going to jump down here. Celtics still in second place in the East at 11-3. It was close to being 10-4, but Jason Tatum knocked down a game-winning three as time expired on Saturday. We got to talk about this. The NBA 2-minute report came out and said it should have been a travel on that play, right? Celtics got away with it, but fans in Toronto don't get anything. So, I mean, I appreciate the NBA holding the refs accountable here, right? But the 2-minute review, it doesn't do anything. Is this just like the shame bell? Shame.
Listen, we used to get letters on Monday from the league, or the coach would read the letter. Buddy Ryan was so noted for this. He would read the letter from the league and then rip the letter up and toss it. Yeah, you get the apology letter. Yeah, well, should have been that, but it doesn't do you a damn bit of good. I mean, what it just tells you that the refs were wrong. So it's good that they're transparent with it. But yeah, it does. At the end of the day, it does you no good.
It seems very subjective because it's a kind of thing where everybody watching at home, all the Cavs fans were like, that's a travel. And all the Celtics fans like me sitting at home on my couch were losing their be like, Tatum hit a buzzer beater, his first buzzer beater, even though, he has hit shots in the last 10 seconds of game. I think that was like his true first 0-0 shot that went in. So I don't know. I guess you want to hold people accountable, even though it's like the whole premise of refing kind of is that it's human and humans are going to make mistakes. There was also that foul on Javion Mitchell that they didn't call when Jaylen Brown fell down before that. But also I think they missed a call on Tatum. I mean, that whole last 2-minute report was like a real mess. So look, the Raptors have been good though. Like they are 12-2. I mean, 2-12. So like not good really, but like they've been good, bad. And I think the fact that they've been taking teams to endings like this is really exciting. I think that they've also they've not had the best luck, shall we say.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between being exciting bad like this and depressing bad like the 76ers that have the same record and are now last in the Eastern Conference relative to expectations. So they at least have that going for them. But this to me is all a reaction to television, like especially now when we've got a million angles of this and we all know it. The NBA's got to have a mechanism to come out and say, yeah, we see what you saw and the human beings missed it in real time. In an ideal world, as with most sports, you'd have a mechanism in place that would help these officials in that moment get the call right. It's what the NFL has been warring against for so long because you've got so many eyes on this, Dad. And while I'm with Charlotte, especially with traveling, it's so subjective. We're in a league that hardly ever calls it in the NBA, quite honestly. And so it's the call that I'm least willing to lose sleep over. But here it's just sort of stating the obvious, knowing that, hey, these officials, we know, when they miss calls and do bad, they get downgraded for postseason play like they do in every sport. But we hardly see that on the outside. We just see it reflected in the win-loss record for the teams that we care about.
Yeah,
Totally.
I mean, wouldn't we expect most missed calls in the NBA because that's the most whistles, right? I mean, it's the most stoppage of play of the pro sports is the NBA, right? I mean, it's usually stopped by a whistle, by a call. So even though there's 3 officials out there, I can see things being missed, Charlotte, the most in the NBA because it's the most whistles.
Yeah, no, I think too that the way you call a game it varies. Like in the playoffs last year, they were like, "All right, we're really going to let them play," and it's like, well, why haven't we been doing that the whole time? But I also think that they're doing their best, and I think it's a crucial part of the sport that people are so quick to hate on refs. But it's like, okay, you want to play without them? Like let me know. So I think that it's a fine line and a balance that everybody's always trying to get right. And so I guess it's what you're saying, Mike. It's like, okay, release the thing that everybody knows, and then they can't say we didn't say it.
Yep, you've got to state the obvious thing to try not to insult your fan base, but in the process, still end up insulting your fan base and everybody involved in this situation. Coming up next, one of the most unlikely record holders makes his stamp on the all-time books. Next on Gojo and Golic.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Charlotte Wilder here with you on a Tuesday. So over the weekend, one of the greatest shooters of all time moved up in the record books. Yes, I'm talking about James Harden. James Harden passed Ray Allen for second all-time on the three-pointers made list. James Harden, Hall of Famer, superstar, great shooter, all of that, of course, but he doesn't exactly jump to mind when you think of the best shooters of all time. So, guys, how do you view him and Damian Lillard even moving up on the all-time leaderboard? What do we think?
This one, Charlotte Dad, to me is a unique cocktail of events. It is equal parts branding and nostalgia. The nostalgia to me is the most potent part of this because Ray Allen, and for a lot of people, a little bit older than me and Charlotte's generation, kind of deal in Reggie Miller as that nostalgia. Man, you think of him in these iconic moments. You think of him and Spike Lee going toe-to-toe and just what he did as a pure shooter in this league. Damian Lillard's got a little bit of that to his game, but Ray Allen, we think of the big shot in Miami and so many of the things he was a part of here, that seeing a guy like James Harden all of a sudden jump into that scene, who now it goes to the branding element, is seen more and I think known more for his style of play and drawing fouls as an eyesore upon the league and, falling short in the playoffs here, being a strip club all-star, all the things that we generally associate with James Harden. Charlotte don't necessarily lend them into us looking at this and going, oh yes, James Harden statistically the second best three-point shooter of all time.
Right. He also hasn't won a championship, so there hasn't been that big moment where he's done it in this huge game that's meant the world to a fan base. I also think that we're just going to keep seeing this list change as the game has changed so much. Like, obviously, Steph's at the top. Then you've got James Harden, Ray Allen's still in there, but, Dame's on that list, as you said, and I think that we're just going to keep seeing more modern, recent players make their stamp in this kind of record just because guys rely on the three so much more now. But yeah, I think I saw that too, and I was like, oh, James, okay. Also, I don't really think about James Harden that much anymore in a way that feels really disrespectful when I say it out loud like that. But he, the Clippers, it seems like a failed experiment in the way that the Sixers now sort of seem like a failed experiment.
Listen, this is an accumulation award. Is it? This is in the time that we are in the NBA where they're attempting 40 and 50 field goals. I just went back to the 90s. League average three-point attempts per game in the 90s was 11. I mean, so just by sheer numbers of the ball getting tossed up from the three-point line, this list is going to eventually be all modern-day players, right? I mean, it's the epitome of the accumulation of stats. So not necessarily the greatest three-point shooters of all time, the most three-point. Now, Steph is by far and away the great. You could just watch the game and say Steph's the greatest shooter. Yeah. But you see the players like James Harden, and you say it's a sign of the times of all the threes they're hoisting up.
Yeah, I think to Charlotte's point, it's what we associate with his game is not this. Like, he has 4,000 more free throw attempts than Steph Curry, or 4,000 more free throws made than Steph Curry, because he's known, as Bomani Jones has always, I believe, been the one to say, he's been known for insurance fraud, going towards the lane, faking foul calls in a way that everyone involved watching goes, well, this isn't the thing we like. And I think that's the other part of this that feels so antithetical to us is James Harden is not necessarily a guy that I think the average NBA fan, because of his style and play, is aligned to want to throw up in these conversations with some of these other guys, because the big moment thing too, Charlotte, you're right. I can't think of the big James Harden shot as readily as I can think of it for Steph, who just added to that over the summer, Ray Allen, who's got one of the most famous, especially in that setting, that we've ever seen. We talked about Reggie Miller already. So there's all those things working against the feeling that comes with seeing his name on this list this high.
I mean, I think it's also just that James Harden is not everybody's favorite player. James Harden is known for making a lot of noise when he doesn't like the situation he's in. And to be honest, sometimes I think that he kind of gets it's not always totally fair, because look at Dame in Portland, who played by the rules and didn't make any noise and got sent to Milwaukee after, what was it, 13 years in Portland? I don't know, a lot of years. And then that's not going well. And you look at Harden and it's like, well, he was, Oklahoma, Rockets, Sixers, now Clippers. Like, did any of that work? No, but he got what he wanted, and I think that he has just been willing to do it in very loud ways. And I think that when that is what you're known for, going to China and calling Daryl Morey a liar, like people are probably going to remember that more than they're going to remember like how well you shot a three in games that were not the games that people watch most because they weren't that far in the playoffs or the championship.
I think that's simultaneously true, Dad. To Charlotte's point, James Harden probably deserves a little bit more credit overall for, in his prime, what he was doing, with him and Daryl Morey and with what they had built for so long, with the way he operated in Houston at the peak of his MVP powers in an offense that was really just him distributing the ball to others, going out and finding a way to score that always ran out of gas in the postseason. He deserves a lot of credit for that, but at the same time, you're right. This seems like an accumulation over time of a guy who had the ball a lot and is very skilled, but also not in the same way as these guys, where if you look at this top 5 list, where again, it's Steph Curry, James Harden, Ray Allen, Damian Lillard, and Reggie Miller. If you're going in their prime, game on the line, you need a shot from beyond the arc. He's probably last on this list of the guys that you would take, correct?
Oh, it's Steph, it's Ray, it's Reggie. Those are the top 3. For sure. How about a quick history lesson for you youngsters? Oh. The ABA adopted the three-pointer in the late 60s. The NBA in 79. Do you know who made the first three-pointer? Charlotte, it was from your team, the Boston Celtics. It was also the debut of Larry Bird in 79. It was his debut with the Celtics. He did not make the first shot. That's when the three-pointer was put into the NBA in 79. It was a guard.
Was it Bill Russell? Was he still playing then? No.
It was Chris Ford.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know Chris Ford.
I didn't think you did. I believe me, I brought this up for the people. I brought this up for the people my age and just tried to educate the two of you. But I'm sure the people who are closer to my age listening were like, oh, Chris Ford.
I'm gonna be honest.
But yeah,
I had a really lovely producer in my ear saying former coach of the Celtics, and I panicked in moments of trivia, and I was like, player coach Bill Russell. That's not how that works.
I was Googling Bob Cousy to see what years he played in because he's the oldest Celtic name I could think of who could qualify for something like this.
John Havlicek, and then I was like, was he a guard? He wasn't a guard. What? And just like the way that my mind can spiral. Thank you for that, Senior. You're keeping us on our toes.
I just trying to keep you on your toes. Yeah, 1979, the 3-point start. But it was wild to me. That was Larry Bird's debut as well. Chris Ford, the first quarter, 3:48 remaining in the first quarter, nailed the first 3 in NBA history, and now we have Steph Curry 3,782 later.
It's incredible. Also, I just want to apologize to everyone for not knowing all of basketball history.
I'm sorry I put you on the spot, Charlotte. That's my fault. I didn't mean.
No. I think we need more of that because I think it keeps us humble. And now I'm going to go read a lot about Chris Ford and come back next week and have so many facts for you guys. And you're going to be like, it was a bit. We don't care. It's over.
No. Exactly. No, I'm sure. I'm hoping everyone will defy the odds and be kind online to a woman talking trivia about sports in ways that usually aren't the case. So we're going to try and make sure we insulate around that for here because Lord knows the rest of us didn't know a damn thing about this. Charlotte, we talked about one of the names on this list. Damian Lillard actually came through with a big shot last night in a season that's felt like sort of a lost cause for really a lot of the Eastern Conference lead. I referenced it before. The 76ers are in last place in the Eastern Conference right now, and Milwaukee narrowly gets by a fingernail the other night on the back of Damian Lillard making a big shot. Charlotte, any hope coming off that win against the Rockets that Milwaukee can show you enough here to get things going in the right direction?
Oh God. I mean, I think sorry. Look, Dame was out with a concussion. He came back. He had that shot. I think that that's the kind of thing. It can sound silly. That can be the kind of thing that can really spark a turnaround. That can like save a season in some small way if the team can get its act together. I think the problem is like the roster's old. The roster is old, and I think that Dame and Giannis. I mean, Giannis is one of two players averaging over 30 points per game. The other is Anthony Davis. And so the fact that you have Giannis and Dame has also, I believe, been averaging in the high 20s points per game. And the fact that they are not winning regularly, that is not working to me is like, okay, this is a problem with the roster construction. This is not whether can these two start. I think when you look at the Sixers, it's like, first of all, I don't know how anybody actually thought that would be the thing that worked. But you can say, well, Joel Embiid and Paul George haven't been playing together, and when they have, it's also been abysmal. But with Dame and Giannis, I don't think you can look at them and say, well, it's your two fault. I think that there's a lot of other stuff going on, and so can you save that in with a roster that maybe can't save it? I wouldn't put money on it probably, but it would be really exciting if it did work.
So right now, early in the season, again, 14, 15 games in, the Bucks are sitting in the 12th slot and Philadelphia last in the East, both out completely of the playoffs. So Charlotte, either, neither, both for the playoffs of the Milwaukee Bucks and the 76ers.
I'm inclined to say both because the East is so bad that it feels like with this much time left in the season, I'm not gonna say that these are some of the best players of all time. We're talking about Giannis, Joel Embiid, Damian Lillard, even Paul George. Like to say that those guys aren't going to be able to get it together enough when it's November now and the East has been so bad. I feel like they will still, even if it's a play-in situation, I feel like they will still make it into the playoffs. Well, maybe not. I don't know. That's a tough one, Senior.
Yeah,
I don't know. The Magic.
This is to me kind of like an overarching microcosm, though, of like what's tough about caring about the NBA at this point in the basketball season, because nothing feels like it matters all that much because there's so much time left, and we understand the way that the season is structured here. That's why, quite honestly, I need the continued resurgence of the NBA Cup. Like, I need this to keep being a thing because it was the one thing last year that made things feel like, even if it was artificial, and we know that's what Adam Silver was searching for here, but again, as we sit here and have this conversation, I'm like, man, it's a long season. Like, we know these guys are good. It's probably not going to look anything close to this when it comes to January, and if it does, we've got bigger problems on our hands. But sitting here right now, even coming off last night, where Damian Lillard, one of the guys on this list that we're talking about, of the top three-pointers of all time, comes back from concussion, hits a game-winning shot for the team that he's in his second year with right now, and I'm still sitting here waiting for my heartbeat to raise above a certain level here. It's the uphill battle that this sport fights now.
I know, and I think, when I'm watching individual games, I will get very, very into it. I won't necessarily, it doesn't carry the weight of like, oh, okay, well, now this means something. I do think what it does is set the table for really cool stories going forward. Like if the Bucks and the Sixers are in the playoffs, oh my God, this is laying the groundwork for such an amazing, like, remember back in November where they were both 2-12, or Milwaukee's not 2-12, but they're not good, so sue me. Like there's it creates the stakes later. And I think that the cup has been very helpful for creating stakes now. Yeah. And guys get into it. I got into it. I think I think it is what the league needed.
It's also playing side by side with a sport in the NFL where every game is meaningful. So you're watching one game a week in the NFL where it's very meaningful, and one of 82 being playing for the NBA.
But, I mean, look no further to Charlotte's point than a couple of years ago with the Boston Celtics, who were struggling mightily in the middle of the season, turned it all the way around and worked their way to an NBA Finals appearance that year when Ime Udoka was still at the helm. So stranger things have happened over the course of this long season. All right, we've got the third round of the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings coming out tonight, and we're at an interesting juncture because this season has presented a lot of newness in a lot of ways. Rapid expansion in college football, especially among the main power conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC. An expansion of the playoff to 12 teams that was always going to involve some new names and some different math, since the committee is doing it differently this year, giving automatic bids to the the five highest ranked conference champions, including the highest ranked group of 5 champion in the mix. And so with that has come an interesting adjustment period for a lot of people and an even wider disparity in the scheduling in the sport. And Ryan Russillo, our former colleague at ESPN, now doing a great job over at the Ringer, talked about this yesterday on his podcast and voiced some interesting frustrations with the model. Take a listen to this.
5 toughest opponents for Georgia are tougher than anyone Indiana has faced. I don't care about the record when it's that ridiculous. Indiana has played none of the top 7 teams in the Big Ten. But when they finish with Purdue, Indiana's going to play 7 of the 8 worst teams in an 18-team Big Ten. I'm over all of it. I'm over the expansion completely changing what teams are doing. And I think we have to adjust for that. And I think the committee should have to adjust for that. If you're telling me that I'm biased, I would tell you that you're right. But I'm going to be biased about a team like Texas who played in the playoff last year. I'm going to be biased about a team like Georgia who's put together some incredible seasons. Now, does that seem kind of unfair? Sure, but what's your bias? I just want somebody different who hasn't played anybody. Your bias would be, hey, they're undefeated. Why are they undefeated? Have they played Clemson, Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas? Oh, they're undefeated? No, they're not.
So, guys, and I'd be curious for you all here. Charlotte is someone who has lived in the world of college sports, covered it closely for a few years, but now covers professional games where across pro sports, the scheduling, the even nature of the rosters amongst most of these teams makes this a moot point. We're much better, I think, at picking champions overall in a lot of those sports for that reasons, or at least it's easier. College football, it's hard to get your arms around here. It's big and unwieldy. There's 133 teams in the FBS level. Even in these big conferences, we see it's sometimes difficult to have everyone with schedules that are even remotely comparable. And so we've got to invent all these statistics like strength of schedule, strength of resume, game control, the eye test mixed in there to try and figure out all of these teams through here. Do you think any of what Ryan's saying has merit in terms of a team like Indiana being overweighted because they haven't played anybody and the mighty SEC still not somehow getting the credit that it deserves for just having more good football players than everybody else?
I mean, it's sort of funny to me. It's like as I was listening to that, I heard, someone yelling in the back of my head, Bama ain't played nobody. Like, what part of me is sort of like, what are we doing? I think the whole point of the college expansion was to address concerns about schools like Indiana in some ways where, I mean, I know that it's Big Ten, but it feels like this is a part of addressing schools that did not get the respect that they deserved, that their fans thought that, like, okay, well, sure, they haven't played those SEC teams because that's not on their schedule, but give them a chance. Like, what if they should have, and that's what the expanded playoff, I think, was supposed to address is like, what if Indiana then does play those SEC teams and beats them? Then you're going to feel really silly playing that Russillo sound back. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying I think that basing something off of a strength of schedule intangible that you can't really measure is not necessarily the way to do it. And like, it is super SEC bias, which, yeah, they have the best players, but also, like, do you want to see if it's possible? Maybe try it this year. If it's not, if SEC just, runs over everybody they plays, maybe in 10 years we'll adjust. But I think it's too early. I just think it's too early to say that.
So what's been the one, since we've had the committee, what's been the one consistent thing said about them? It's their inconsistency, right? What are they marking as their points? So I have said, why not go back to the BCS? Put everything in the computer and let the computer spit it out. That way you're taking the human element out of it. And by the way, the computer all along, the old BCS style has been following along. And the BCS style after the game Saturday would spit this out. Oregon number 1, this would be all the computers. Oregon 1, Texas 2, and this would be for the seeding. Miami 3, they have them winning the ACC. BYU 4, winning the Big 12. And then Ohio State at 5, playing Boise State, who's 12. Penn State at 6, hosting Ole Miss, who's 11. 7, Indiana, hosting Alabama, who's 10. And 8, Notre Dame, hosting Georgia, who's 8 and 9. That's what the BCS computer would spit out. It's like, what do we rely on? Because we can sit there and have this conversation about, you know, a 1-loss, a 2-loss SEC team should be higher than an undefeated Indiana team because they played a tougher schedule. Well, I mean, what system are we going by? We went away from the computers. We went to the 13 human beings, and now we keep hearing from the commissioner of the committee every week on ESPN give a different answer of what the freaking criteria is. So you can't really hone in on what you're looking at. So I don't know the answer to this. My answer has been go back to the computers. The computers are unbiased. The computers aren't subjective. You just put information in the computer, and it spits it out.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is college football has always had a historically tough time picking a true champion because of all the things that we described about the score. Quite honestly, if you're someone that feels the way Ryan does or thinks along that lines, you're going to get your way because the people that make the decisions for this sport want the same thing you do. They want this to be the SEC Big Ten Invitational. They want to eventually get to the Super League where all this will get a lot easier when you've got the top 40 or 60 teams, whatever number they cap it off at, and you can pod schedule this easier and make it much more even across the board so that everyone's tested somewhat during this regular season, you're going to get the world they describe here. Whether or not that's a better one for the sport than what we've got now remains to be seen because part of this sport has always been celebrating the depth and breadth. And I get over time, you've had a lot of the talent all conglomerate in one conference and in one area and a couple of schools in general that can play in a different weight class than everybody else. But to the central criticism here that Indiana, yes, who has the 103rd ranked strength of schedule or whatever it is and hasn't had to play any of the good teams in the Big Ten yet because of the way it shook out this year, they're going to play Ohio State this weekend. And I have a feeling if they get thumped by Ohio State, they're probably going to drop like a rock the same way BYU did, who was ranked just ahead of them or right around them, I should say, in the CFP before their loss to Kansas this last weekend. So they're going to be judged differently. Hell, you've got 4 2-loss SEC teams in the top 10 right now of the AP poll. That seems like, to me, people understand this conference, yes, has a massive recruiting advantage over everybody else, has better players overall here, and historically has been the one to dominate the sport. They're getting plenty of the benefit of the doubt. The fact that Indiana has gone in and baptized the bad teams in the Big Ten and made them look like that in the run-up to the Michigan game that was close last week, I don't know. This seems, to me, like an overreaction and a frustration right before the weekend where we're going to get the answer about this team who, again, like Miami, like BYU, like the other teams that are at 1 or none losses in conferences that don't play as gauntlet of a schedule as the SEC, we're going to get the answer here. So I'd say just wait a week and then decide if you're really angry about this.
I also think that that's part of what I love about college football. I love that it's messy. I love that a team like Indiana, which people didn't have on their bingo board, can come out of the woodwork and be like, "Oh, okay, well, like let's see what you can do here." And I think that that's been some of the most surprising, delightful moments of the sport in general. Like we have pro sports that are streamlined like this for a reason. It's parody. We have college football because it's a circus and we love it and it's messiness and it's about home and it's blah, blah. It's also about a lot of money. It's also about the SEC, blah, blah, blah. It's everything. I think, though, I like having a little bit of those wild cards. So I don't know.
I understand that not every game and every win is created equal and that it is probably a tougher road through the SEC. But at some point, if you're expecting me to cry tears over the 4th or 5th SEC team not getting their shot to win, when we know even amongst that group, this year might be an outlier, but in most years, they're further down the pecking order from the teams actually capable of winning a national championship, you're going to have a hard time swaying me. I get it's different when it's your team, and this might be very personal for a Tennessee fan or an Ole Miss fan, but for everyone else handicapping the sport, you're going to have a tough time rallying support around this. All right, let's finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you to the rest of the day. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the DraftKings Network. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Gojo and Golic. All of our videos, all of our shows from every day, all under one umbrella. No, there is no fracture in the relationship with DraftKings just because we are not airing on the DraftKings YouTube page anymore. We're trying to make it all easier to find for everybody in one place with our name on it. And so we need you to subscribe to that, hit the bell so you know when we're going live every morning, and come and try and catch us and all of our great guests. But if you got to miss them live, and our thanks to Saints offensive guard Cesar Ruiz, who joined us in hour number 1 to talk about their season, and our buddy Charlotte Wilder, the co-host of Oddball with me and El Hassan, joining us in hour number 2. If you miss any of that, get it wherever you get the podcast or right here on the YouTube channel as soon as we get done. Guys, let's start off with this. Has anyone ever been less excited for any cool thing than Paul Skeens was to win Rookie of the Year in the National League? Last night, Major League Baseball began their week of awards, and if you're trying to keep score at home for all this one, they did the Rookies of the Year yesterday. You're going to have Manager of the Year coming out tomorrow, today, Cy Young coming out Wednesday, and the MVP on Thursday. So unsurprising given that Paul Skeens is top 3 in Cy Young voting too. But Charlotte, you've seen this video of his acceptance speech here, and I don't know what went into this. He's there with his girlfriend, Livy Dunn. They're the it couple for the youth of Major League Baseball right now. But the guy couldn't seem to muster up any excitement for this moment.
Yeah, I don't know. Is he tired? Like that's all. That's all I could think of. Also, the moment they announced it and they're on the couch was like very uncomfortable, and so maybe he's just not. Maybe he's still getting used to being on camera, even though he's on camera for 120 days a year. Senior, what's going on? Help me.
Listen, I don't know him. Maybe he's an introvert. Maybe he's a quiet guy. I don't know, but boy, I'd have been doing freaking handstands on the couch if I were Rookie of the Year when I played. There's no doubt about it. But again, that's probably his personality. Your new gossip show needs to find out the answer, Charlotte. You need to find out what's going on.
I'm gonna dig in.
Has he been in any of Livy's TikToks?
I have to do a deeper dive than I've done.
I would have to be on TikTok to know the answer to that.
He's
which
really
I'm not,
giving just like reluctant boyfriend, which is not great.
He's definitely
but
appeared in a
that'd be
bunch
one
of stuff
thing if he was
together.
like showing up to an award show as her arm candy, but this was about him. Like this was his celebratory moment, and he won it by a pretty wide margin. He got 23 of 30 first place votes here. Luis Gil, who won in the American League, won only by 5 points there, so that voting a little bit closer there. And having 2 pitchers obviously go out and do this, the first time since 2011 that 2 pitchers won Rookie of the Year. So an exciting moment for him. Congratulations to Paul, and we hope maybe in a quiet moment away from the cameras, you got a chance to celebrate and recollect on what was no doubt a rookie season that delivered in ways we rarely get to see. This is a guy that during the LSU College World Series run, we knew could be a star. People talked about being a day one impact guy, and really has gone to Carson Street and made things an absolute gem. I forget if their stadium's actually over near Carson Street or if that's the Steelers. Either way, congrats. Jesse, let's move on to that. What do we got?
Yeah, Kim Kardashian got one of the Tesla robots. That's a fun thing to say out loud. And she introduced us to it. She did a little video saying hi to her robot, and it's saying hi and waving back to her. Here's what I want to know. Why are we making the robots so big? Don't you think, like, if we are going to live in fear that the robots are going to rise up one day, can we make them half size? Like, why are we making them full human sized? We should be making robots with the idea in our head that we may have to fight them one day.
We're so screwed.
Could not hate this more. It's like everybody, I just feel like these dystopian books keep coming true, and I'm like, cool, let's do the one where the robots kill us next. Because like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And as someone, I've said this before, but as someone who makes your living on the internet, I don't care, pull the plug on the whole thing. It was a bad idea. Let's go back to landlines and letters, because I would take that any day over whatever this creepy Elon Musk thing is.
Yeah.
This is a show that does not like robots openly. We do not like AI, do not like robots. But this robot mimicked the movements of Kim Kardashian. So I guess my thought is have the robot mimic what made Kim famous.
Oh my God.
Senior from the top rope coming in.
Dear
Okay.
God.
Yeah, straight to that. I mean, that's
he's
what
so
is-
proud.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's so proud of
Of
himself.
all,
It's
did Mom
inevitable.
text you that?
But it is inevitable.
No, I thought of that on my own.
Yeah.
Thought of that on my own.
Yeah, wow.
Kid still got it.
Yep.
3 decades in, I still have it.
Okay, to be fair, I think that's probably the first thing that every man thought of when they saw the robot that kind of looked like a human, okay? We know you thought it.
My first thought was it's going to be a problem when they make the robot thick.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, you did say that.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
know.
you did say
But
that, yeah.
being said, disturbingly lifelike movements, and to your guys' point, this looks just like the iRobot robots from the movie with Will
Yes.
Smith. Like, what
Yes.
are we doing? We have taken no caution. We have heeded none of the warning signs that science fiction writers have been dropping for us for years. And even the people that are a part of making most of this technology, most of the people that are working around these AI projects and stuff are all like, we probably need to slow down because we're getting way out over our skis. And so, you know what? Elon Musk coming through and deciding he's just going to go and build the robot that's going to begin all this. One of the least surprising things to happen, and now he's part of the government here. It's all getting very scary very quickly.
All I have
Jesse,
to say is, all these people making these robots, don't be shocked when the robots turn on us. Don't be,
Look.
I didn't see that coming. We've had years of movies to see it coming, okay?
They're gonna
It's coming.
come for us first because we've been so vocal about that, about not liking them, and I'm sort of
That's
okay
true.
with
Oh,
that. Like,
100%.
if that's how it
Yeah.
goes, great. Just like take me out.
I don't know. I got a super
At
soaker
some
at
point, I'm
home.
going to have to
They're
figure
not
out if
coming
we're
for
going
me.
to make the decision to start to grovel before the robot lords too, because it is going to happen. And you know what it is? It's because we're all so lazy. The reason this Tesla bot's going to do numbers is because people are lazy and want help around the house. The reason Waymo is so sick is because it's actually a very smooth ride and kind of, peaceful, and you automatically get to suggest the quiet conversation portion of the ride instead of having to slide the thing over on Lyft or Uber. So it's going to take advantage of our laziness and then put a pillow over our face while we sleep. Jesse, let's move on from that to the third.
Okay, well, we're afraid we might be overtaken by robots, but in New Hampshire, one man is making sure a shelter is being overtaken by mice, okay? So this dude shows up to a shelter. He had called ahead and said he wanted to surrender 150 mice. He shows up, it wasn't 150 mice, it was 150 tanks of mice. So he has roughly 1,000 mice that he's showing up at the shelter with these bad boys. And this kind of begs the question, are mice pets? Because I can tell you what this shelter is going to do to these mice. And it's going to be that they're going to sell them for people to feed them to their pet snakes. Or
That's the question?
Are mice pets?
My question is, why did this guy have 1,000 mice, Jesse?
Because much like our male co-hosts who are thinking about what they're going to do to those robots, mice just procreate very quickly, okay? That's just what they do.
How did he come to possess the thousands of mice?
Yes.
How did he corral the thousands of mice?
I think he had a bunch of mice and they started going at it like mice, and then they multiplied very quickly. Which we hope you can't do with a
Wow.
robot, but I guess we'll find out.
Well, at least,
Again-
at least these mice were in a shelter and not on a plane like the tarantulas, centipedes, and bullet ants. So
Yeah.
at least there's something to be said for that. But you're right. They're going to be sold as snake food.
Yeah, it's just too many mice.
The thought of having this many mice, as someone that's had to deal with mice in their attic before, back when I lived in Connecticut, where that's a thing that happens pretty regularly, the sheer volume of poop.
Yeah.
I mean, just a wholly disturbing amount of poop that this man had to be dealing with during his time as the caretaker for these thousands of mice. Who, yes, that was my first question, honestly, is how many snakes does the shelter have?
Yeah.
That was really the question there. And it seems crass, but it's the circle of life, and it's how these things work, kids. If you enjoy the circle of life enough to lead you all the way to the discussion here on this show, bad segue, but we made it happen, or you enjoy a bleached blonde Mike Golick Sr., download, subscribe, rate, review the show. Leave us a 5-star rating. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.